Now you also took a trip with your sons.
That's the next thing.
Okay.
Is that when I got home, they asked about it. You tell me when you want to start.
Oh no, we're going.
Okay. I got home and my Carol had talked to him about freight trains, and they had never been anywhere. They had not been camping, they had not been fishing. We had just arrived in Colorado when we brought them here from Illinois. And they said, they asked me about it, would you ride a freight train, is that scary? And I said, no, not if you use your head. You don't want to, I don't care what you do, if you don't think about it and plan and use your head and make good decisions, you're going to get hurt. But no, not if you think about it and you don't do anything crazy. So I said, you'd like to find out? I said, yeah, of course we would. Well, let's go cut your hair. And I got them 2 new packs and told my wife, I said, honey, these guys want to go, so I'm going to take them up to Canada. And just for the heck of it, I really didn't realize this going north was a lot harder than going south, but I learned. The trains go much slower. East-west, they go rapidly. South into Texas, fairly rapidly. North, they don't go very fast. In fact, we got set off. We jumped on a train down here in Denver. Carol took us down, and 3 of us jumped on. We got set off up in Wyoming while we were sleeping. They dropped the car. I hadn't asked the guys about the right car number. Anyway, so we sat out there in the middle of Wyoming for a while, and I went and asked, there's only 2 guys that worked there. It was a little tiny place, and I said, when's the next train coming through to go north? I want to go to Montana. Oh, it'll be here tomorrow. So we hang around the day and just pedal around in the middle of Wyoming, and got on the train the next day. They told us what car they were going to put on the train. And we got up to Montana, and from Montana, we jumped on a train in Billings, Montana, that went west across the mountains. And what a trip that was. We were sitting in the train, and we didn't realize it goes through these tunnels, and the smoke from the train comes back into the car, right? And so we just got black. Our faces were black, and we were coughing and spitting. And
so you're in a boxcar at this point, right?
In a boxcar, yes, sir.
Okay.
And we were in a boxcar, and what we would do is we would take a boxcar, and then we would go around in the other boxcars, because they line the sides with cardboard to protect the furniture, etc., whatever they're carrying, if it's of any value. And so we take the cardboard, big pieces of cardboard, big boxes that had been flattened, and lay them on the floor. And I'd lay them down maybe 3 inches thick, and then put my sleeping bag on top and sleep like a log. I mean, it's much better than passenger trains. Nobody bothers you, and the only problem is there's no bathrooms, so you have to wait for the trains to stop or reach it, or take chances. Anyway, I was taking a chance one day looking outside of the boxcar, and there's a little fox sitting there just waiting, his tongue hanging out, waiting for the train to go by so he could cross the track up in the mountains in Montana. But anyway, we get to town where I wanted to get off, and I asked, we met this old hobo, by the way, on the way across the mountains. And he explained to us about the tunnels after we didn't know. We found out the hard way. But he told us, and we got into this little town in Idaho. I wished I could remember the name right now, Mace, but I don't. It was a little town. And I asked the guy, I said, does the train stop here? He said, sometimes not. So it went through town. I thought, uh-oh, we missed our chance. I said, we're going to jump. It wasn't going too fast. I told the boys, we're going to have to jump. Now, you watch me. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I said, you watch me, but then do what I do, and do it fast, because the train's going on through. So I jump, and I'm tearing up gravel and spreading gravel all over, and I get up and look. The train stopped. Backed up into town. The boys just laughed at me all the way, and I walked carrying my pack and my bloody elbows. And we we get to town, and we were told how dirty we looked. So we went to the motel. We thought, well, let's go take a shower, and we can afford one motel. So we went to the Sandstone. And we went to the motel, got cleaned up a bit, and then we crossed the border walking from Sandstone. We got a ride, hitchhiked up close to the border, and then we got out so we wouldn't get anybody in trouble. And we walked across the border, got on the other side, started hitchhiking again. Well, 3 of us with packs. Not that easy to hitchhike. So the only people that would pick us up were cowboys or whatnot. And we got into a place where I knew some people on a campground up there, Indian. It was an Indian reservation. And we stayed with them for several weeks, fighting forest fires mostly, making some money to come home on. I wasn't supposed to work. They told that only Canadians, to help unemployment, only Canadians could work. So I asked a guy, I said, how many numbers are in the Canadian Social Security number? 8. Oh, we have 7, I think. They had 8. Anyway, whatever it was, I don't remember the exact number. It was one more than we had. So I gave him the number of, somebody had my little Social Security off my work. And I worked and earned enough money to come back on. And we hitchhiked back. It was kind of funny. We got rides in pickup trucks mostly with cowboys and miners and guys that work on the trees. God, my old brain. Anyway, that's the only place that had room for 3 packs and 3 guys, right? It was pickup trucks. So it was a little slow going. But we got over north of Sandstone and hitchhiking back, and I said, don't bother with the Cadillacs, they won't give you a ride. And so I just laid down the ditch there, let the Cadillac go by. Pretty soon the Cadillac come back, turned around, said, where are you guys going? Sandstone. We wanted to pick up another train to go home. Get in. They were beautiful people. I mean, well, you just can't label people. You just can't. And they gave us a ride. Very nice people. Took us all the way to Sandstone. Got off, let us off at the freight yard so we could catch a train to go home. We got home finally, and the hobo was on the train with us when we got to Denver. Loved the kids. Just really enjoyed talking to them. He said, I've been so long since I've talked to young people. And so they invited him home. And he said, okay. If your dad says yes, all right. So they came home with us. Carol never knows what to expect with a husband like me. Here come me, the 2 boys, and a hobo. And we put him up for a couple of weeks until he got bored.
Oh, wow.
And he finally said, I tried to get him a job. I thought he'd like a job. He didn't want a job. And he said, Gary, middle class life makes me a little nervous. I'm going on down to Texas. And years later, I saw the guy. We used to take our own garbage and dump it down in Westminster to save the garbage fee. And so we carried our own. And here he was out looking for a pair of shoes. He was headed. There's some people who ride freight trains who are tramps, they call them. They don't work. They just bum. They're so much mental illness on the trains now, since they closed down most of the homes for the mentally ill. And the only way they have of getting from place to place is on freight trains, nothing else. I mean, nobody's going to pick them up. They're not.
Do you think people could jump a freight train today?
I don't know. When I look at the trains going by, I think no. I don't see the open doors like they used to have.
Yeah.
And I see once in a while a guy riding a hopper. A hopper's the one like carries coal and has a place underneath on each end where you can sit and stay out of the wind. But so many are drunk, they fall off. I was careful who got on trains, especially with children. There's a rule on the road. The tramps travel by just making it any way they can. Some of them have doctorate degrees. I mean, they just can't deal with society. They've had trouble. Who knows what trouble? War, whatever. I don't ask. Some are alcohol. Lots of alcohol problems. But there's a rule on the freight trains I learned that if you don't want to ride with someone, and there's plenty of other open cars, just tell them. It's your car if you're there first. Then you have a right to your privacy. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds weird, but there's the rules that you follow, or not, you get in a little trouble. So you find out, and making soup, nail soup. We have, we'd get off in a town and go under a bridge, to spend the evening maybe. Everybody goes to town and gets whatever they can get. If you got 20 cents in your pocket and you can afford to buy something, fine. Or if you have to beg it or get it out of a garbage can, as long as it's fresh, because there's a lot of things thrown away behind supermarkets and whatnot. Everybody brings something to it, and then they throw this old nail in. One guy always carries this old pot, They'll throw a nail or a stone. It's either nail soup or stone soup. And you put in whatever you brought. Cool. And that's a stew. That's everybody eats. And if you bring a little bread, it makes it great. I mean, it's not every time you're around people, but sometimes you have that kind of community between hobos. But hobos, I didn't finish my story about that. There are tramps who don't work. Hobos travel on freight trains from job to job. For some of these guys, like the one that we rode with, are fruit fruit tramps rather. They work in the fruit yard or in the vegetable farms out here. And they'll travel back and forth to whatever happens to be harvesting at that time. So there's different kind of people who ride the freight trains out of necessity. And mine was always necessity, except for taking the boys. I wanted that for an experience for them, so they could experience that. I asked them not too long ago, do you ever talk to people about that? No. Why? They don't. Well, if you tell them that, they don't believe it. Then they don't believe anything else you tell them. They think you're a big liar, so we just don't tell them. And when we got home, was another part of that story. We got home and it was school time. We got home just in time for go to school, back to school. And the teacher called my wife and she said, Carol, I'm worried about your foster sons. We had two brothers because they didn't want to separate them. So we had to take two. And we were never sorry for that. It was good for them to be together. But anyway, she was worried about them and she said, why? Well, she said, most children know the difference between fantasy and reality. They'll carry fantasy so far and then they'll tell you the truth, whatever the truth might be. And she said, but your sons just stick to this fantasy. And I'm a little bit worried about their mental health. And she said, well, what'd they tell you? I said, well, they told me they rode a freight train up to an Indian reservation in Hope, British Columbia, and then came home and brought a tramp with him, and he lived with it for a while. And my wife said, it's not a fantasy, that's what they did. She said the phone went dead. And next week, I get a call from Child and Family Services, and said, what in the world are you doing? So we got a visit from them. And they came out and they were just chewing me out. What do you think you're doing with these boys? One's got epilepsy and he may have fallen off the train and killed himself. And, well, yeah, maybe he could have, I said, but you know what? These kids are going to live the way I live. And it's, we're not going to, and anyway, she said, well, you will ask permission, won't you, Gary? And if you're going to do something like that. And I said, no, ma'am, I won't. I said, because you have to say no, because then the responsibility is yours, not mine. And you're going to say no. And so I can't tell you not to live the life I'm going to live. I said, but I'll make you one promise. And she said, what's that? And I said, I promise you that they'll keep their mouths shut next year at show and tell. She said she accepted that compromise and we never heard from her again. They never bothered us anymore. And the boys now are grandparents and they're very good grandfathers.
That's good.
So,
that's good. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it so much. All right.
All true.
Yeah.
True as you can make anything.